I want to talk to you guys about losing games that you should have won. So this is a game that I played recently. I was playing as white. I had this position. You can see the eval bar there off to the side. I had mate in 6. And yet, despite that, I managed to lose this game. Let me know in the comments if you can relate to something like this happening. You're totally winning, and somehow you managed to throw the game away. Well, let's take a look at this game, and we'll talk about what happened at the end. So, e4, e5, I attacked the pawn. My opponent defended the pawn. I played knight to c3, and we get a 4 knights defense. Now, the 4 knights defense is the starting position for what's called the Halloween Gambit, if you want to play that way. And I decided to play that way in this game. And a lot of people say this is not a good opening, but really I think it actually is quite a lot of fun. And it can be a very powerful gambit, especially if your opponent doesn't know what to do. Actually, the best way to respond to it is by sacrificing the piece back, which not a lot of people want to do that. Anyway, they took the bait. I played d4. This is why we give up the knight, because we get a massive pawn center and we gain a bunch of tempos on the knight. They played knight to c6. I kicked that knight. And they decided to go all the way back, which is not the best decision. Now I can play e5, and if you'll notice, this knight also has to go back, otherwise it's just going to get captured. Okay, and actually one of the better ways to play this is to just let me take it. Just play bishop b4, let me take it, you capture back, and okay, the game goes on. But they didn't do that. They decided to go back. So I have this massive pawn center, and I knew that d6 was the best move because I've looked at this with the engine before. And the reason that d6 is such a good move, this is a really good learning opportunity, is because we blockade the d pawn so that this bishop can't come out and this bishop can't. It's one move that essentially shuts in both of black's bishops. That is really, really, really important. Okay, so my opponent actually plays a move c6, which is not a good move because now you're really never going to get rid of this. Okay, maybe if you take, there might be some opportunity in the future where if I'm not paying attention, you can win that pawn or something, but now that's just never going to happen. So not a good decision. I played bishop c4, just developing to an aggressive diagonal. b5, another kind of questionable decision. It doesn't really do much. I mean, yes, it attacks my bishop, but it's an awkward place for the pawn to be. It also allows some potential tactics here with the rook. And so I just went back. Not a big deal. Bishop to b7. I played queen f3, and this is a very hard threat to deal with. Okay, this is checkmate. You can't defend with your knight like you normally might be able to because I'll simply take it with my bishop and you still have the same problem. You can't block my bishop because all your pawns are kind of blockaded here, like d5 is not a move. You can't defend with your queen because this pawn is in the way. I mean, you see how powerful this pawn on d6 is, right? So my position is awesome, okay? Black decides to go f6. Really, it's the only thing that I think they can do to block off my queen. I castled, which was a great move. Get my king out of the center, get ready to bring my rook over. So far, I'm just playing everything perfectly. Queen c8. I captured, again, opening up the king. I mean, I'm in the driver's seat. I can just tell I'm going to win this game, right? I can just feel it. Captures. I played check. Okay, now Stockfish says bishop g5 immediately is a little bit better. And I think the idea is that if he tries to run the king now, well, I'm simply going to take here, and this is going to lead to a checkmate. Okay, there's checkmate. So you kind of stop the king from moving by actually playing bishop g5. When I go rook e1, it does allow the king to escape. And then even though I still get into a nice position, it gives black a chance to do something, namely take this pawn, and then it gives their king a place to run to. Okay, so this is really, really important, and we're going to see this more as the game goes on. But when you are hunting your opponent's king, one of the most important things to think about is not letting their king escape or kind of run to the other side of the board or run and hide somewhere, right? And I know it sounds obvious, but a lot of times, people don't think about this. So allowing him to capture this pawn and the king to run over here was kind of my biggest problem in the position. So that's why bishop g5 was such a great idea. Because now if you try to do the same thing, let's say take and run, I take here, and you don't get the opportunity to do that. The king is stuck, right? And now, the rook's coming at this point, and it's going to be all over. So that was a small thing, but still, I got into a great position. Brought the other rook over, so I have all of my pieces in the attack, and black's pieces are horrible. I mean, look, this is awful. Like, it's amazing. It is amazing to me to go back over this game and think about the fact that I didn't win. It's just mind-boggling. So king c7. So, of course, I need to attack. I mean, this is probably my best moment. If I wait too long, black's going to be able to maybe develop their pieces, and who knows what happens. So I did see the best move. If you guys would like to pause, probably figure it out because I already kind of showed you the next position, but rook takes d6. And the point is, this bishop basically is the only piece that's kind of defending the king. I need to get rid of it, and the only way that the king can take the piece back is by coming out into the open, which is not a good decision. They go for it, but now it's mate in 6. Now, again, going back to the critical point that I just mentioned, when you are attacking the king, you don't want to let it escape. So where's the most logical escape route for the king? Well, it's back to c7. Because if you get back to c7, maybe you can play d6 to block off this diagonal. Then you can play knight to d7 to block off anything from here. And all of a sudden, your king is actually getting pretty safe surrounded by all these pieces, right? So I played a very logical, natural move, bishop to f4 check, which is the best move in the position, or one of them. There was 3 moves that were fine. But the idea is take away the escape square and force the king, if you look carefully, forces the king over here to c5. So everything is going great so far. Now, this is the moment in the game where I fell apart. And before I say anything else, if you would like to pause, see if you can find the best move for white. All right, if you had a chance to look at that. So there's a lot of good moves, but there's only one best move. And it's the move knight to a4. Now, to understand this move, you really have to understand what's going on here. So here's the situation. I want to get my queen as close to black's king as possible, as fast as possible, because right now it is in big trouble. However, the most logical spot, like for example, something like queen c3, I can't do that because my knight is in the way. So moving my knight with check is a way to do that. Oh, sorry, that's what I played in the game. Moving my knight with check is a way to do that. And also notice that it's stopping the king from running back here and hiding back there. So it's kind of accomplishing multiple things. And the other thing is that when the pawn takes, that's actually a really good thing for me. You might not be able to see it from this position, but that pawn on b5 actually provided shelter for my opponent's king. And by playing knight to a4, I'm eliminating the shelter. Okay, usually when the king is running, you don't want there to be pawns next to it that it can kind of tuck behind, essentially, right? And so that is what knight a4 accomplishes for me, okay? So if I would have played this, if he captures me, I could simply go queen to c3 check, king has to move, bishop c4 check, and then queen b4 is just checkmate. Notice the pawn on b5 is not there to block my queen. Bishop is controlling the escape square, everything is taken away, it's just game over. That's all I had to find. Now, this brings me to another important point. Look at the position. I had 1 minute and 31 seconds. And I only spent about 10 seconds, a little over 10 seconds to play this move. I should have taken my time. I should have slowed down. I should have said, okay, look, the king's on the 5th rank. The pieces are not developed. I have all these pieces here. I need to find a forcing checkmate. 1.5 minutes should have been plenty of time for me to do that. I think if I would have taken my time and slowed down, I probably could have discovered knight a4 check. For whatever reason, I think I got a little bit careless. I think I thought that I could play any move and I would win, right? And I thought, okay, bishop e3 is good enough. I'm still going to win. Now, in my defense, it's not a losing move. It's still a good move. And black is still supposed to be checkmated if I can find the idea. But it gets a little bit more challenging now. King goes to b4. And if you're wondering why the king didn't go back this way, it's because now I can play queen f4. And you force the king to step into, the line of the rook. Bishop check. I guess there's multiple moves, but let's just say bishop b6, take away this, unleash this. And after the king tries to run, we have an amazing, look at this checkmate. I mean, this is pretty nice stuff, right? Rook's cutting off here, the queen and the bishop. Okay, but back to the game. The king goes to b4. Now, there's still checkmate, but now I have to find one of two kind of tricky moves. Number one is bishop to d2, keeping the bishop in line with the king. And the other one is, guess what? Knight to a4. Again, the same idea, clearing the way for the queen in some cases, and also hoping that black takes because now your king is more exposed. We can simply go queen f4 check, king moves, and this is actually just checkmate. There's all kinds of checkmates here. I'm just showing you a couple of them, by the way. But I needed to find one of these two moves. I didn't find it, and I played instead queen to f4 check. Now, again, I still have a great position, and I'm not losing, but I'm letting the king slowly but surely get to a section of the board where I can't actually checkmate it. And notice this b5 pawn is actually doing a great job of shielding the king from my queen. Okay? And I played the move bishop c5 where my advantage, you can see, completely goes away. So the move that I had to play was either bishop to d2 or knight takes b5. And I think, here, I don't know, again, I had plenty of time. I could have probably slowed down, but in my mind, I'm thinking, no, this is good because I'm keeping the king trapped. I'm going to go here and checkmate in just a second. And worst case, I'll move my bishop and like use my pawn or something. Like that's kind of what was going through my mind. I was thinking like, okay, knight a6, I'll move my bishop, get my pawn up there. I'll still get a checkmate. He plays knight a6. And I think at this moment I started to realize like, wait a second, if I just move my bishop somewhere, it's not that simple because yes, I can go here, but the king looks like it's going to get away. And I was like, I don't actually know what to do at this point. And you can see the eval bar, like it's a small advantage for me, but I don't really have anything immediate. So I think this is where I kind of panicked a little bit. Let me see how much time that I spent here. I think this was the moment. I spent 30 seconds. And now I'm like, what do I do? So here's the next key point. When you're way ahead and things aren't quite working out for you, you have to either make a decision of number one, slow down, like we talked about earlier, slow down and find the checkmate. Or number two, you have to just make a move and go with it and save your time. If I would have done that here, if I would have just played this idea quickly, who knows what was going to happen? I wasn't going to get checkmate immediately, but at least I would have had time on the clock to finish out the game. I did the worst thing possible, which is when you get panicky, when you get indecisive, you're like, and you go back and forth between, well, maybe I should play it. No, maybe I should look. Maybe I should play it. No, maybe I should look. And I ended up wasting half my time before I played a random move, bishop a3, which... I mean, yes, I saved my bishop, but it doesn't really threaten in anything. I'm not even threatening here because of the knight, and now I'm just losing. I lost the material. I don't have anything to follow up. And so I'll show you how the game finished. c5. At this point, I sacrificed, which is too late now. I kind of realized that my knight needed to get that pawn out of there, but it was too late. King captured it. I went with the check. I brought my rook over, sacked here, hoping for something, but you can see the eval bar. There's nothing there, and I ended up... I think losing on time in a few moves, yeah. So, moral of the story, guys, is when you have that moment, okay, when you know, like you just know it is about as good as it's going to possibly get for you, which for me was right around here, maybe here, that's when you need to slow down and use your time to find the finishing blow. It's worth it. Just find the finishing blow, finish off the game. Don't get careless. Don't get arrogant and think that you can play just any move because you can't. You cannot just play any move and you think you will automatically win. That's not how chess works. And this is a perfect example of that. A couple of wrong moves, and all of a sudden the game slips away from you. And I hope you guys can learn from this. This was a rough one for me to play, a rough one to show, but it happens to everybody, and I think it's instructive. And yeah, I hope that you can at least get a takeaway or two from this. So thank you guys for watching. As always, stay sharp, play smart, and take care.